Hi everyone on the Zoom call. Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, Zoom people, give me 1 second. I cannot hear you. Can you say something, someone on the Zoom call?
This is John Brady. Can you hear me?
Thank you, sir. Yep, I can hear you perfectly. Everyone can hear, right? Okay, perfect. One last thing, Selectman Goulart is sitting to my left. We have a microphone over there. I want her to say something, and if you could respond if you can hear her.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, it's working.
Okay, and then one last thing. My colleague to my right, is, Selectman Pacheco, is going to say something. I just want to make sure you can hear him as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Cable.
And you're good to go.
Thank you. Mrs. Brady, we're good? Okay. Okay, I'm ready, Cable. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, November 4th at 6:04 p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. This is your regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen's meeting. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. It will be played on repeat on Channel 9. I'm placed on YouTube in perpetuity as well. We do have a scheduled public hearing this evening, and per our normal methods of participation, we have email as listed on the agenda, the phone number is listed on the agenda, and also via Zoom, of course, with the link, meeting ID, and passcode as on the agenda. With that being said, I do ask that everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, since our last meeting, I mentioned the passing of Malcolm Mac Borden. A couple of meetings ago, I mentioned the passing of Margaret Borden, who was my neighbor in North Dayton for a number of years. Malcolm, or Mac as we knew him, was her husband. And sadly, he passed away this week, just a short time after the passing of his wife. And in memory of Mac Borden, I ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And as always, our condolences to their family and friends as well. We do have a hearing for a stock transfer / change of officer / director and change of manager for Avichaldas. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. At 1896 County Street. And I believe, Mrs. Brady, correct me if I'm wrong, this is popularly known as Rochelle's? Mendoza's, excuse me, thank you. So we do have the applicants here, correct?
Yes.
Do you mind just identifying yourself, and then you can, if you wanted to say a word or two?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Attorney John Moradian, Democus Law Offices. I represent Avichaldas Corporation, DBA Mendoza's at 1896 Dayton Street. With me is Mansi Patel, his father, Ashwin Patel. And today we're here for the application. We're seeking a few things. Ashwin and his wife are purchasing the stock owned by Patel, the current stockholder. So we're purchasing her shares of stock, and we're asking for approval of that stock transfer as well as approval of the change of the officer of the corporation. Ashwin will be president and secretary, Shali will be the treasurer, and Mansi will be the director. Also, with this is a change of manager to Mansi Patel. He's worked in a retail store for a few years now, the experience. He is tip certified, and I do believe that the location is having an ID scanner for checking IDs. And then lastly, we're requesting the approval of Trust Company as Rockland Trust is financing the transaction.
Sir,
So I'll open any questions you may have regarding the application.
thank you so much. And you can still hear me, correct? Okay, sorry. Regarding the last item, so I think I just want to, for the record, there were 4 items that I think you needed us to act on, or requesting us to act on this evening. One was a stock transfer, one was a change of officer, one was a change of manager, and do you mind just reiterating the 4th? I know it was a financial component.
So it's approval of the pledging license inventory to Rockland Trust Company. Rockland Trust is financing the transaction, so we need approval of the board to use the license as collateral for the loan.
Thank you. And I just wanted to open this, did you have anything else? Did the applicants have anything? Or the applicants through you as their representation?
No, any questions the board has, they can direct them to us. It's a straightforward transfer, there's no change to the store itself, layout or anything like that. It's just actually a family transfer. Same amount of operation. No price anything really in terms of the difference.
And I guess if it's okay with my colleagues, I do have one question. My question is just, I know you're saying that it's mostly a family transfer, so I interpret that to mean things like store hours, like meaning hours of operation, all that would stay the same, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That was it from me. Selectman Pacheco?
Yes, if you could just elaborate on the 4th thing that you wanted us to do. Did you hear me? Could you elaborate on the 4th item that you wanted us to vote on?
He's asking you to elaborate on the 4th item, the approval, I believe it was something like a license inventory that needed to be transferred to Rockland Trust.
So Mass law allows licensees to use the license for collateral for your loan. Similar to a mortgage for a house, in the event that the loan's not paid back, it gives the bank an opportunity to foreclose upon the license and either take the store back or if the trust is something bought, they take over the store. Now that would happen if the board's approval. It's permitted practice under national law. It's just a security, just some license needed that the loans are paid back.
I would just ask my colleagues then, is that something that we've done in the past?
I've never seen this before. I've got questions.
Yeah, I've never, so you've served longer than I did. Since I've been on here, I have not. We've done transfers for things like liquor licenses.
Well,
but this
ownership.
was, yeah, and ownership, so. Selectman Goulart?
My first question is, who currently owns the business?
The business is owned by Avi Charles Corporation. And within that corporation, John Patel is the sole shareholder.
With this request, if we grant it, who will own the business?
The owners, it would still be Avi Charles Corporation, but the owners within that corporation would be Ashwin Patel and his wife, Michelle.
So, will the original stockholder have any stock in it at all?
Going forward, no. After approval by both the board here and the ABCC, we'll do a stock transfer, closing the transaction
Okay,
on John Patel.
So, with the transfer, if approved, is this the same, is it within the same family? In other words, the current stockholder, are the new proposed stockholders related to the sole stock owner?
Yes, but on John Patel is Ashwin Patel's sister-in-law, and it is an arm's length transaction.
Okay, I understand. That's the only change in this business? Everything else is the same?
Aside from Bonsi Patel being the manager of record.
Okay, but, so what assuming we approve this tonight, then ABCC has to weigh in on it?
Correct, ABCC, this was the ABCC for review and approval, and they notify, both us, the applicant, and the town, Selectmen.
Okay, thank you, I'm all set.
Thank you. Selectman Pacheco, did you have any further questions, sir?
I'm all set.
Okay, I had no further questions as well. So my understanding is that it sounds like maybe we might need 4 votes. Or maybe we could do something inclusive if we are prepared to make a motion, that would just approve the changes as presented or as requested. I'll leave that up to my colleagues.
I think so.
You wanna do all 4, Mrs. Brady?
I think it should be.
Okay. Oh, okay, all right. Thank you. Bear with us just a minute, gentlemen, we're just, coming up with a, motion so we can encompass the,
I
requested
can make a
changes.
motion, I just don't know that last part that they're seeking, it's the wording for it.
Do you wanna say that?
Okay, we know he's looking for a stock transfer. He
2,
wants a change of officer,
Yep.
director.
3, change of manager
Change
of
of manager.
record.
And what was, again, the last one?
Mr. Maradian, is it it's a license inventory?
It's a pledge of the license
And
and inventory.
inventory, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. A pledge of license and
And inventory.
inventory. Can everyone hear,
Yeah.
from the TV is it loud enough? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear it. Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a motion
Mm-hmm.
that the first 3 be in one motion, and that the last one, because if it's a pledge of license and inventory, and the fact that there is going to be a bank, I believe, involved, that one I think we ought to do separately.
Okay, that's fine with me, Selectman Goulart. Even if you wanted to do 4 separate, I was okay with that. Or-
Does that work for you?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm entertaining
Okay.
a motion. Oh, you're gonna
I
make
don't
it,
know,
okay.
okay,
I'm
I'm making a motion, I'll make a motion that, we approve, the stock transfer, change of officers, director, and a change of manager. I don't know how to pronounce it, unfortunately,
Manager of record.
Manager of record.
manager of record.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, that motion passes.
Was the
Well,
bank Rockland?
Yes, Rockland Trust.
So, because this is Zoom, we're gonna have to do a roll call.
Yes, please, roll call on the,
Ye-
thank you so
aye.
much. Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I thought it was only if it was exclusively Zoom, my apologies.
Aye.
We can do it just to be
Yeah,
safe, it doesn't even
we-
matter.
We can seek, further clarification,
Absolutely.
just so, but.
We'll be
but-
safe.
Yes.
Err on the side of caution, sir, I appreciate that. And I will entertain motions regarding the request for, approval of pledge of license and inventory to
Mis-
Rockland Trust.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the request of pledge of license and inventory to Rockland Trust Company as requested.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, that motion carries. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Thank you very much, gentlemen. I do have one last question. If everything is actually, let me back up. Do we hear about this from the ABCC?
Yeah, he said that's.
Yeah, so what happens, ABCC, after they do the license and approve it, they usually email me and email, your contact, to get them to Karen Brady, with the approval.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Good night.
Absolutely. You as well.
Move to close the hearing?
So we have a motion to close the hearing.
I'll
Selectman
second that
Pacheco?
motion. I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, that motion carries. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Okay. So we have closed the hearing. Full disclosure, we have several agenda items. This is just for my colleagues
Yep.
that involve the health agent or Mr. Pilling.
Okay.
He did request to be here, so I have notified him that our public hearing has concluded. So I do ask that when he arrives, if we could take his 3 agenda items out of order,
Okay.
and that is items 8D,
D
8E,
and 9B.
Yep, and also 9B, exactly. Pandemic Task Force meeting update. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So with that, Mrs. Brady, did we receive any discretionary spending requests? We did not. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for continuing to be compliant and on board with our discretionary spending request process. We definitely appreciate that. Is there any public input this evening? Either via telephone or email, Mrs. Brady? And I will check Zoom. I don't see anything via Zoom. Bear with me one moment. There was someone new who asked to enter the room. So I just want to give them a moment before we move on, because I did not see. Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if you're able to hear me for the folks still on the Zoom call. We are at the public input portion of the agenda. If you have any public input unrelated to any specific items on the agenda, you can take this opportunity to provide that public input, or you can wait until the second public input towards the end of the meeting if you want to comment about something on the agenda or when we're discussing it. Hearing none, and again, we will come back. Scheduled announcements. Selectman Pacheco, do you mind reading them?
Yes, there's a few. The Dayton Public Library is working with Old Colony History Museum in Taunton to offer a virtual programming, and they are kicking it off this Thursday with a tour of the museum. It is at 6:30, and it is through Zoom. If anyone is interested, they can contact the library and participate live. However, the museum is allowing us to record the program so that we can host on the library's new YouTube channel. I have also, Mrs. Tavares has also been given permission to send all recorded programs to the Dayton cable for them to air. These digital learning programs are made possible through the CARES Act funding to the Federal Institute of Museum and Library Services as administered by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. The 2 following events are coming up before our next or during our next meeting. The first one is this Thursday that I just mentioned. It's a virtual tour of the Old Colony Library. That's on November 5th at 6:30. And on November 18th at 3 o'clock, they're going to have a kids make history butter. So they're going to teach, I guess, or show kids how to make butter the old-fashioned way.
That's awesome.
Other announcements are that the Veterans Day ceremony will be held at the Veterans Park, 979 Somerset Avenue, on Wednesday, November 11th, 2020 at 10 a.m. All are welcome to attend. Please wear a mask for the safety of all who may attend. In case of inclement weather, the ceremony will be held in the Dayton Lions Pavilion, 1111 Somerset Avenue. The Town of Dayton's food bank distribution will be held next on November 21st, 2020, located at the Town Hall, 979 Somerset Avenue, the lower level, and it will be a drive-through pickup. Dayton Town Hall will be closed on November 11th in observance of Veterans Day, as well as November 25th through November 27th in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday. The Dayton Cultural Council has extended the deadline to Monday, December 14th, for organizations, schools, and individuals to apply for grants that support cultural activities in the community. Last year, the Dayton Cultural Council distributed about $5,800 in grants. These grants supported a variety of artistic projects and activities in Dayton, including exhibits, festivals, field trips, short-term artist residencies, or performances in schools, workshops, and lectures. And that's all the announcements.
Thank you, sir. For the folks on public input on Zoom, did you want to, before we go back to our agenda, did you want to provide any public input. I don't know if they could hear, that's all. Okay, thank you. We have no old business. That's some good news.
Again,
For 2020, right? Under new business, we do have the Veterans Day proclamation. Did anyone want to read that? Either of my colleagues, whomever?
I'll read it. This is a proclamation. Whereas thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty, and whereas on November 11th, 1918, the armistice was signed by the Allied nations in Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars, after 4 years of conflict. And whereas since that day, every November, people from around the nation have gathered to honor our veterans, and whereas today, we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions our veterans and their families have made to our country. And whereas we salute those who serve our country throughout the generations with honor, patriotism, and courage, and whereas it is appropriate that all citizens remember the bravery of those who serve their country so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, recognize Wednesday, November 11, 2020 as Veterans Day, and urge all citizens of the Town of Dayton to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Signed by the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Brett Zografos, Clerk Nancy Goulart, and Member Kenneth Pacheco.
So I will entertain motions regarding this very nice proclamation.
I'll make a motion that we approve this proclamation.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public input regarding this proclamation? I'm sorry, I thought I heard something. Did you hear something?
I heard something too,
Okay.
but I,
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, that motion carries. Roll call?
Aye.
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 All right. Fabulous.
I'm going to make a motion that we do not go in the order that we previously planned, and that under new business, we go to item 8D.
Are you saying B as in Bob or D? Oh, D, okay,
As in dog.
okay. Is, Mr.
Yep, Mr. Pilling's here.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
in
he
person.
just came in, I know, yeah, he snuck in.
Good evening.
No wonder you're not on the screen.
Oh, yes, I didn't tell you that.
He's an
I'm
apparition.
sorry. He did request to be in person.
October 31st was Apparition Day.
I felt it would be easier if I was here to answer questions.
Absolutely, we
So
appreciate it.
that was a motion, I'll second it.
Yep, I made a
We have a
motion.
motion and a second to take item 8D out of order. Any further discussion?
Yep.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, that motion carries. Roll call.
Aye.
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 We'll definitely check on this, Mrs. Brady, just because I know it's a lot to have.
I think it's only
You
if
can
one of us
actually-
is missing.
Yeah, one of you is participating.
If it's one of, if it's a committee member,
Committee
board
member.
member. Yes,
It's if they're participating remotely. You are
Yes.
correct. That
Yes.
is
I
right.
think you are correct, yes.
yes.
I know you are
Which is
correct.
good, because
Yes.
I'm like, that's gonna get,
Yes.
that's gonna be a lot.
I
So
just
where's,
wanna-
where's Mr. Higgins when you need?
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you, sir, for being here. Did you want to present the request? I know we have the request in the packet, so I assume everyone has read the request. Maybe you have more information on the request and why you're requesting it.
Sure. I'll try and be brief because I know you got a lot to cover. So, as you know, recently in Dayton, we've kind of had increased cases. Schools have been reopening. Governor's issued some new orders, which I figure we get into later under the pandemic task force. But basically, the workload in the office keeps ticking up. And I'm supposed to be 28 hours a week. Right now, I'm working 35 hours a week. The extra 7 hours is paid for by CARES Act. Looking to go up to 40 hours in a week, which would still keep me at that threshold. That would be overtime, and that would be covered also under the CARES Act because it's all COVID related. We're probably spending right now, both Roz and I, each 10 to 15 hours a week on COVID. I mean, there was an election this week. Did I have to pop in and check on the election? No, not necessarily, but I think it works better for the people who are working there and the people coming in to know that it's being done properly and for safety. We've been spending at least 2 hours a week with the schools, just with discussions with them on how things are supposed to be operating. Never mind the contact tracing and all the rest of it that goes with it. We've had complaints at local businesses. We've had to go talk to all of them. It's just this never-ending task. And COVID, unfortunately, when they put all this in, construction was considered essential. So construction has been the same as it always was. And in fact, because everybody's been home, everybody's doing those small projects on the houses, there's been even more. People have also been home, there's been more septic failures, so there's been more perk tests. We've been in a drought year, so all these vacant lots around town that are difficult to perk, the dry year is the time to do it, so we had an increase in perk tests. And trying to manage the whole thing is just, it's out of control. So that's why we're requesting the additional hours. The CARES Act grant right now only goes through the end of December, so this would only be through the end of December. We got a Thanksgiving week and a Veterans Day week in there, so those 2 weeks wouldn't hit into that. But it would be for the other, whatever that is, 5 weeks to get us through the end. I'm also looking for the office manager to also get an extra few hours. Right now, she's doing the conference calls with me on Friday because there's a lot of information on those calls, and she has to disseminate it to the public when they call in when I'm not here because I'm out doing inspections. And she's been invaluable in keeping the office moving because we get a lot of phone calls. In fact, we were asked as part of the CARES FEMA grant to give an activity record to the town accountant so he could present it. So we took our calendar and we highlighted everything yellow. We also took our phone logs from the last 6 months and we highlighted everything that was COVID related. I mean, we're averaging probably 50 calls a day that are coming in. 10 of them are probably COVID related. It's just been absolutely insane. So we're just looking for the extra time just to keep up and get us over this hump, because in theory, the cases will go down now that the mask order's in place and stuff like that, but obviously we don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. My first question is, I do want to talk about the CARES funding because I did have a question about it, and probably you can't answer it, but I did want to just highlight something that came up in a conversation with the town accountant about this. But that aside, I did want to ask, do you foresee, so we obviously had been gray for quite a few months, everything was great, it was warm, now we went to red within 2 weeks, from gray to yellow, yellow to red. So I understand that that probably comes with some work. My concern is what happens after December 30th. And maybe that's a conversation that we'll have when we get closer to that date. But in terms of the requests through December 30th, I do think that we went from 1 case every 2 weeks or less to 15 active cases all at once. And just knowing a little bit about how things work, probably 15 will lead to more than 15. Hopefully not. We obviously pray for the best and prepare for the worst. So I think that it's warranted. My concerns, and we can get into this conversation afterwards, are more about how it will be funded and more the care side. But that being said, I did want to open it up to my colleagues.
Sure. Have you, in the past, have you already submitted stuff for the CARES Act? So the previous period up until June 30th, was anything submitted?
Yeah, so when all this first started, there was a FEP grant that was out there, Public Health Emergency Planning. That was only, it was supposed to be 15,000, but ended up only being 9. But those funds only covered the town nurse, because she was doing most of the contact tracing, and some expenditures we had for putting in a drop box and that kind of stuff. So all of the office manager and I's time has been under CARES, and yes, we did submit for that first round that went through June 30th, and it
Yes.
had to be submitted by September something or other. Our time was on that. We then had to estimate our time through the end of the year, and on that, I carried 7 hours of additional time for me and 1 hour of overtime for the office manager. And that was predicted. So this is above and beyond that. I will say that I'm speculating based on the rise that there'll be another round of CARES funding that'll come out to carry us through the next few months after this, because everybody's
After
in the same
December.
boat. Yeah, that's just my guess. I don't have any information that would say that it is, but.
So my second question is, and there's no doubt in my mind that there's, you've been given additional work, but you talked about the office manager having to answer the phones while you're doing investigations or whatever, but I noticed yesterday that you brought your office manager with you to the election. So who's answering the phones?
Well, it's very rarely that I take her out with me. The times I do take her is when we go to a place where there's an election and it's a big room that we're trying to deal with, or if I bring her to the schools, if it's a meeting with like the school superintendent or whatever, I need somebody to take notes at the meeting. I generally don't bring her when I go to do perk tests, or I do restaurants or
I was gonna ask,
retail.
that was the
It's
question. I was
very specific times that I bring her, because again, what'll happen is if I'm not in the office and somebody calls about the election, she would have the answer for them,
Yeah,
so.
okay, that's
Okay.
the only question at this moment, yeah.
Try to keep her fully immersed in what's happening, so.
I was concerned about time management of her
Mhm.
time. That was my concern, that when she's away, she's not answering the phones, and then when she comes back, she's got more
Yeah,
work to do.
no, we generally try and plan it that, even if I try and, well, not that I've had days off, but if I have a day off, that she's covering the office or vice versa.
Yeah.
We generally, it's generally not, and even if that's the case, then somebody else is covering the building, but.
And you do not bring it to perks, you said, and
No,
Stuff like-
no,
okay.
no, no. In fact, our chairman, Tom Pyers, well, he's not our chairman anymore, but he's still a member. He's actually been stepping up to come out to the perk test, so once the soil evaluation part is done and we're just timing the water, he's been staying there so that I can come back to the office and do work, so he's been stepping up, and he's been coming into the office to do some of our turn-ins for us and that kind of thing, to help with the workload. But
Thank
he's
you.
only one man, so.
yeah, thank you.
Selectman Goulart, you have the floor.
I agree with what you said about, what do we do after December? And I think we're gonna have to kind of follow this and see what happens with cases. I think what we're hearing is that, we know the we're gonna get winter, and it's not gonna warm up like the rest of this week is, which means everybody's inside again, and they're saying, even families together, not good. So, I think if we can get through December with the plan that's been proposed, and obviously before the end of December, by mid-December, we gotta have an idea about what does it look like trend-wise? And we may have to go almost month to month.
Correct.
And obviously, everything that happens affects schools and children. So, you know, I don't have any questions at this point. We just gotta keep monitoring it.
I did, in the spirit of just being transparent about the conversations that I've had, I did speak to former town administrator Aaronstein before she left, along with town accountant Mr. Laviolette. Concern was expressed about whether or not CARES would fund this request, and part of the reason is because this third round that is open apparently until December 30th is a cleanup round. And so they made it sound like new requests may not be, it's really not for new requests, it's to fix other stuff that you had already submitted. I'll just tell you my position. Even knowing that, I think we still, if work is needed to be done on something like this, then I do feel like we just need to find the money. I'm sorry.
And we're not
But-
making a long-term commitment.
Correct.
We've gotta monitor, because like, as
Well,
I
the
say,
commitment is to take it month by month.
right, and since we're already into November, if we, by, the target date will be, let's say mid-December, we have another update on what does it look like? Is it getting worse? Is it gonna be better?
Mhm.
But even, let's assume, hopefully it gets better. Even so, we're gonna have to have updates all the time, because if it goes, this switched so fast, and if it goes south again, we
Mhm.
gotta be ready to
Mhm.
have the personnel to deal with it, so I'm
Thank you.
okay with that, yeah.
I don't see it getting better, quite frankly, so
I
I think
know.
we're gonna be addressing this again,
And I think we
you'll be
should,
in front of us
Yeah.
sometime in December.
and I think we should, I think we all agree, like, we should plan with the worst case scenario in
Right.
mind. We
Right.
shouldn't plan like, oh,
Yeah.
it's gonna
Hope-
get warmer.
hope for the
this
best.
and
Yeah.
that. Yeah, exactly.
And townspeople hearing or seeing this whenever they do, understand that, we're going to do our best to fund what is needed to have the personnel to do it, so it's not, we don't want anyone to think, oh, we're gonna have to stop monitoring or doing such and such, because we don't have money. We're gonna do what we have to do, period.
Yeah, absolutely. Lives are safety and lives, I
Yeah.
think is what it comes down to.
So,
Um,
I'll make,
oh,
if we're
sure.
ready to for
Yep,
motions.
we can.
I'm
My
gonna make
thing
a
was
motion
unrelated to
that,
this.
that the office manager, Rosalind Grassi, hours be increased from 35 hours of regular hours with an addition of 5 hours of overtime. I think we ought to do them separately.
Should we put through December 30th?
Through December 31st, 2020.
Are you gonna
Oh,
include the
he
health
says it-
agent?
It's
I
actually,
thought
it
he was
says
gonna
here,
do them separate.
until December 26th, 2020. So,
Because the money has to, by the CARES Act, it has to be paid by December 30th, and that's our last payroll. So if we were to work the overtime on December 29th, it wouldn't
Yeah.
get paid till January, so.
I thought we should do it separately, Mrs.
Okay.
Goulart.
All right, then I second the motion for Mrs. Grassi.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, that motion carries. And regarding Mr. Pilling's request.
I'll make a motion that the health agent, Todd
Mhm.
Pilling's hours be increased from 28 hours, regular hours, an additional 7 hours at straight time, and additional 5 hours of overtime until December 26, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. So I guess, Mr. Pilling, we can maybe rendezvous again next month, or maybe later this month, and maybe just,
Yeah, I'm assuming we'll be having conversations in between, but yes, probably
Absolutely.
on a meeting in the middle of
sure.
December.
Or if you wanna do it, I know you meet on stormwater, we rendezvous on pandemic task force, so if you just wanna talk then, and I can bring it back to
Yep.
the board
And if any
with
of you want to come into
updates.
the office at any point in time,
Okay.
that's fine too, so.
My other thing that I may ask Mr. Pilling to do is, I know this is, I don't want to bring it up because I feel like it's like we just got over the last one, but we all know budget season is coming for the next fiscal year, and I just asked him to please monitor trends in things like COVID incidence rates in town and in nearby communities, because we're going to have to make our best guess based off that. We don't have a crystal ball. I have no insight into what we all hope everything's gonna get better. But again, we're gonna need to plan for the worst, and we can only go off that data.
Yeah.
So I did ask him to do that too. So we
Thank
have a
you.
short-term plan. We
Right.
also have a long-term
Right.
plan.
And we have a Board of Health meeting tomorrow night, so we'll be discussing it
Yeah.
tomorrow night.
Regarding this, is there anything else regarding Board of Health, the requests we received? Or I was gonna go to the other item.
I'll make a motion that under new business that we go to item number 8E.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. I did just want to say, I did request this to be on the agenda, fully knowing we had a conversation that this is being handled primarily by Mass DEP in tandem with the local Board of Health. You had mentioned during that brief conversation that probably we should have been notified directly, meaning not from the Mass DEP letter, like maybe Mr. Spellman could have reached out and just let us know. So that was why I put that on here. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to set the scene.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say,
Yep.
this was briefly discussed at the Stormwater Committee this afternoon, I'll say the more technical end of it.
Sure.
And with input from Mr. Ferry and Mr. Aguirre, and since Mr. Pilling was coming tonight, we said that he would provide the update based on all the discussion we had today.
Thank you.
So
Sure.
whenever you have any of these sites, gas stations or big commercial sites, you'll see monitoring wells on the property. Those wells are monitored by what's called an LSP, a licensed site professional, and they take water samples and whatever. Some well somewhere on or near Larry Spellman's property, the North Country Auctions, hydrocarbons were detected to an amount that somebody had to report to DEP, and that's why we got the letter. And LSP is now, DEP is mandating that an LSP now has to check all the wells, find out where it's coming from, see if there was release. They're gonna be looking into it, and Mass DEP is on that. And other information will follow to us as they get it, but it takes a while to get all this data, get it to a lab, get it tested, and come up with results and everything. This isn't like tomorrow we're gonna have an answer. This could be weeks or months before we
Absolutely.
know more, so.
Thank you. Did anybody have any questions about this?
It's concerning, quite frankly, because I don't want this business to be here for a couple of years and then leave, and it's a brown, what do they call it, brown? When there's a lot of pollution, they call it brown
They
something.
need to be
Oh,
brown.
brownfields.
Brownfields. Thank you.
Brown,
We don't want to see
brownfield, like we have
Mr.
others in town, which means that we
Yeah.
can't now have business there, and we're
Mhm.
not, the town is not
Yeah.
benefiting from that, so.
Mr. Pilling, would you talk about what you and Mr. Ferry and Mr. Aguirre talked about, the water? And the site may not be on his property?
Right, we don't know that this well was on his property, or the leak was from
From
his
his
property, or
property.
from a neighboring property, and it's traveled onto his property. We don't have enough information
Okay.
right now. We'd be
Mhm.
speculating to, but wherever the leak is coming from, it needs to be dealt with, because you're right, we don't need to have something long-term.
Right.
We need, but that's part of the reason these wells are drilled, so you can find it when it's early on, instead of finding it 20 years later.
So did any other business get this letter? Because he got the letter.
He's the only one that got the letter, so the well may have been on his property. Again, there's not enough information in this letter. There's no map saying, here's the well,
Yeah.
whatever. That's what the LSP will then be providing,
So that, the research investigation reveals that. Okay.
Yes,
Mhm.
and
Unfortunately-
the stormwater committee, we decided we're gonna talk to Mr. Spellman and say, hey, you've got an LSP involved, if you can allow some communication with us and, you know, so we can have a better understanding of what's going on.
And that was more what I wanted out of this, that was all.
Yeah,
So
yeah, there was a note, something about, board action, license, and none of that's relevant. The unfortunate thing is, the well seems to indicate, or he owns the piece of property on that particular well. But when Mr. Ferry and Mr. Aguirre and Mr. Pilling were all talking about this, we all know that area is very wet. And we also know across Main Street, we have a real brownfield site that's being capped. It's gonna stay where it is. Because of the water and the way it flows, it's possible, don't know if it could come that direction. It could be something from years ago that, Mr. Pilling, Mr. Ferry brought up the dry summer and how there were spikes. You elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, so because we had less rain, there's less water, so that if there was, say, just 1 gallon of gas, it's, the concentration is gonna be higher, as opposed to the solution of pollution is dilution, and you get all this rain and it would dilute it, so it wouldn't be as high in the wells. And because of that, you know, if there was a slight leak from something, it very well could have spiked at one of these wells. However, they're usually testing from down in the ground several feet, but gasoline tends to bind in the soil, not travel through the ground as much in the groundwater, so there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, but we need more data, so.
So, as he said, basically the Stormwater Committee said, well, we'll take it under advisement and just keep through the gentleman we talked about. They'll keep tracking it and we'll get information to you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when you said that we will get information on this, you meant you or the Board of Health, and will Stormwater, through you,
Yeah,
Stormwater
well,
will get the information?
again, right now DEP's in charge of it.
Yeah.
We're gonna ask Mr. Spellman if we can kind of be involved in discussion. When Board of Health gets it, we'll be sharing it with Stormwater Committee and the Board of Selectmen, so,
Mhm.
as soon as we get it.
Any further questions on this
Yeah,
one?
so I don't think we need to take any action
No,
then?
no,
because
there's
no
It sounds
action.
like the Board of Health
No.
and Stormwater's doing
Yeah.
what they need
Yeah.
to do. So thank you
Okay.
for that.
You're welcome. And thank you, Selectman Goulart.
You're
And thank
welcome.
you, Health Agent Pilling, for that. I
So-
did want to, was there public input? Was that, did I
didn't think so.
interrupt
No,
someone?
I was gonna make a motion that we go
Oh,
to.
it was you? Okay, I'm
Yeah, no,
sorry. I
I
thought
was-
it was on the Zoom call.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
I was gonna make a motion that we go to Selectmen's Reports 9B.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. I was gonna give this update under the guise that there would not be someone more qualified than myself here to do so. So did you want to, and you probably have even more information than when we met,
Possibly,
or not.
so,
Just whatever,
well,
whatever you want.
again, I'll be brief. We've already said we went from gray into red. For Dayton, that only means a couple handfuls of cases, you know, it only takes like 11 for us to go into the red. So, until we're in red for 3 weeks, we're still staying in the step 2. So nothing has really changed on that front. At this point, the pandemic, what do you call it, Pandemic Reopening Committee We're not looking to shut anything down, we're not looking to do any of that just yet, because the numbers, it might just be a short spike and it goes away, but if the numbers keep going up, then we'll be having another meeting and having another discussion.
Can I ask you one thing about
Yeah.
that? And, because I may have misunderstood. We had a conversation at that gathering about, does it need to be read for 3 weeks before you can, so it's not like you can just decide to start shutting, there's like guidelines for how to
Well,
approach
so
that
the
topic.
state had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We're in phase 3, step 2. If your town goes into red for 3 weeks in a row, you
Yep.
drop back to phase 1.
Okay,
I'm sorry, not phase 1, step 1 of
Yep.
phase 3,
yep,
which reduces the size of the gathering and all the rest of it. We are not there yet. Because again, it could just be one spike, one household is all it would
Yes.
take.
Yeah, so how many days so far then we've been in red?
Well, today would be the second week out of 3. So come next Wednesday, if we go our 3rd week, we're going to go back. However, what happened is this past week, the governor came out with 3 orders, which effectively drop everybody back to step 1. All liquor stores are closing as of 9:30. All restaurants for sit-down are closing at 9:30. And in fact, all meetings have to end by 9:30, which includes the Board of Selectmen meetings, have to be over by 9:30.
oh, thank you. I
Doors,
wish you had told
doors
us this
closed,
sooner.
lights off, everybody out.
Is this
by
a
9:30.
permanent ruling?
Cable is
9:30, yes.
classic.
Is this a permanent
Was that a
ruling?
motion?
Hey, it's the
So-
governor.
Yeah, we don't need to do
Yeah,
anything.
so my question on that, if we get to that point, how does that impact our special town meeting then?
It doesn't.
As far as numbers of
Legislative
people?
bodies are always exempt from these regulations.
Okay,
However, you still have to maintain the 6-foot separations and masks have to
Mask,
be worn.
yeah.
The other order that came out is, as of Friday morning, you have to wear a mask everywhere you go. Even if you're walking the track or walking the sidewalk, if you're on any property that's open to the public, you go to Home Depot, as soon as you get out of your car, the mask is gonna come on and stays on until you get back in your car.
so every board, committee, commission, some are still doing remote, but some are definitely in these rooms. So how, are we gonna send a memo to everyone and let them know, hey, this is what you need to do if you're gonna have
So-
a meeting?
Drafted a memo.
So are we supposed to be masked up?
Yep.
Yes,
Thank you.
So the Board of Health drafted a memo,
Thank you.
that I wanted to show the selectmen. It
Thank
doesn't
you.
change, the occupancy was still at 8 people per 1,000 square feet with a max of 25. However, the meetings have to be over by 9:30. I know that generally applies only to a few committees that tend to be long-winded.
You are not gonna get a complaint out of anybody, I don't believe, about that ruling.
Oh, this doesn't happen till November the 6th.
That's
Oh,
Friday.
yeah, but we need to be out of here early tonight anyway,
Oh,
don't
yeah,
worry.
that's right, definitely.
Don't worry.
And thankfully, the Stormwater Committee meets in the afternoon, not at night. So,
And we had a long meeting, too.
but yeah, I figured this should go out to all the boards. I mean, again, I don't think many of the boards are gonna be getting near the 9:30 mark, but, yeah.
One last question, not opening the door at all. I know there's some strong opinions on it. This last line here, this applies to all boards and, committee meetings. It does not apply to religious or political gatherings or to town meetings.
Correct.
What about the curfew? Are they exempt for that too?
They have not implemented a stay-at-home order. That's why most of.
It's an advisory.
It's an advisory.
Okay, thank you.
So, but that's why the restaurants are closing, the liquor stores are closing. It's giving people less reason to
Okay.
be out after 9:30.
Gotcha. And if it stays, then the governor will
Then
think
we might
about-
do the stay-at-home.
Gotcha.
He's been saying all along he doesn't want
He
to do
doesn't
the
want to, I
stay-at-home.
know.
So,
It's actually 10 PM to 5 AM, right? The
For the
9:30 is to
advisory.
give them time to get home.
yeah, for the yes, but this is, again, for meetings and gatherings, Boy Scout meetings, 9:30. It doesn't matter what it is, so.
Yes, yes. Name and address, sir. We know you, but not everyone does.
22 Montford Circle in Dayton, and I'm curious whether or not I'm a member of the zoning board of appeals, and I'm curious if meetings are fully remote, does this still apply? Because we've had some meetings for certain projects we're involved in through the zoning board of appeals that have gone beyond 9:30 and still may need to, but every single person is remote.
So that's an interesting question. The order refers to gatherings. So in theory, if everybody is at home on Zoom, they're in their own personal space, that the order wouldn't apply to them. It would only apply to a gathering like this.
Okay.
So,
That is a good question, though, because
I
some
can
people
get a
will
better answer
Zoom
from the state,
here.
but yes.
Okay.
Because
Some
this is the gathering. A Zoom meeting, it's no different than you calling your mother on the telephone. There's no contact.
So if a community such as ours knows that we are gonna have a meeting that could potentially go beyond 9:30,
You should
we
Zoom.
should Zoom it completely.
Just to be safe, Mr. Gale, for the time being, I think
Okay.
give yourself some leeway. Do you want to go past 9:30? I don't want to ask.
We're not thinking of,
I think it's important for different communities.
That's not good for recruitment,
yes,
though.
no, it's good to know that it's possible to go beyond 9:30, especially, obviously if it's a Zoom meeting.
So if you have I would think if you had something that you think people have strong opinions on your commission about, then you might want to think, depending on what your start time is, about doing it on Zoom. You're welcome.
So this memo, obviously through the selectmen, if they're okay with what's here, if you can disseminate it to all the
I will.
committees and boards.
Via email, is that okay?
However you get it out to
Okay.
them is, as long as they know that it comes into play, so.
Mrs. Brady, can we make sure on our, one second, Mr. DeSico. If we could just make sure on our little rolling to-do list that sending out this Mr. Pilling's memorandum should be on our priority list. Just to let them know that, starting next week, here's the rules. So we appreciate this very much.
And that last line means, if you get fined, you gotta pay it. This is not, if you're doing a town meeting, or, a board meeting, and you say, but I was out for the town. You're
Yeah,
on
you
your
don't
own.
charge it back to the
You're
town.
on your
No,
own,
no,
you
no.
gotta pay it. So just in
Well,
case.
mister, you gotta cover all these bases. You
Yeah,
laughed,
just in
Mr.
case.
DeSico. Sir, did you have public, and please, if you don't mind identifying yourself.
Mike Seco with the Taunton Daily Gazette. I just wanna make sure I get a copy of that.
The memorandum. You are the best, Mr. Pilling. Consummate professional, prepared.
That's not the governor's order.
Mhm.
This is an excerpt from the governor's order for what applies to town board meetings. That's not for everybody else, so you need to read the whole order if you're concerned with other groups. Yes.
This is what Dayton's going to
Yeah,
do.
this is
Yeah.
Dayton specific. Thank
But again,
you,
it's
sir.
only for our boards. It doesn't cover Boy Scout meetings or this and that, because there's other stuff that applies to.
Town entities.
Yeah.
Okay.
A wedding
and,
and that kind of
property
thing.
and all
Right,
that.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions regarding the update?
No. As,
Okay.
as I used to say to Mrs. Aaronstein, when something would come up and somebody would say, well, we don't do that in our town, and I'd always say, then you respond, do you know who we are? We're Dayton. Do you know who we are?
Mr. Pilling, thank you so much.
You're
If
welcome.
there are
Thank
no
you.
further questions, I'm
I
sorry.
have no other questions.
No,
Okay.
All right, thanks for having
Your
me, and
time
thanks
is
for listening to me.
appreciated.
and,
we'll expect you to go straight home.
You better believe it, it's almost bedtime. All right, good night.
Thank
night.
you, sir. That was very productive. Okay. Next on our agenda, we finished A. We will go to voting on the recommendation for special town meeting warrant articles, Selectmen Goulart. I know that we are on a tight time limit, just out of respect for your schedule, so I do want us to hopefully go through this in 20 minutes. We do have a couple other, standard things that we need to do.
Are these the only ones we gotta cover, these four?
I believe so.
Okay,
I believe everything else was tacitly approved.
okay.
Yes, I know that the finance committee last week was concerned about the engineering
Okay?
for town hall,
Yes.
but I think we've already supported that. I assume we continue to support that, and
I
we'll
am, sir.
we'll be available tomorrow night, the
Mhm.
FinCom meeting,
Okay.
as well as our ADA coordinator will participate also on that. So I don't think we need to discuss that.
Okay, yes. Yeah, I didn't change my mind. I think Selectman
Yeah.
Goulart's agreeing, so we're good on that one. Now, I did want to start with the playground article.
Article 13.
Article 13, thank you so much, because I don't have the numbers.
Yeah.
Mr. Gale, I know, actually, we asked Parks and Rec to be here. We did ask the chairman. He was supposed to call the our administrative team to get the Zoom info. Did he ever call us?
But didn't, but,
He
yeah,
told
but
me he
didn't
was,
he tell us he had a meeting at 6:30? Did he say he had a meeting?
Mr. Rhines is not the chairman, so
You're
Mr.
right,
Rhines
yeah,
had
I'm sorry.
contacted Mr.
Yeah,
Rosa.
Yes.
he
And-
was, Mr. Rhines is on the Stormwater Committee, and we walked out together, and he said, I'll see you tonight. I'm going to see if I can get Mr. Rosa to call in, but he said he'd see me, so he may be planning to come in later. Maybe we should just hold on this one and see if he comes in.
That's fine with me. Mr. Gale?
No, I was gonna say, I think that Mr. Rhines this morning had mentioned that he was gonna inform Mr. Rosa to see if he could join, because he had said at a meeting this morning that I was involved in that he didn't believe he could participate.
I'm sorry, you are correct.
That's fine.
Nope, you are correct. I also did speak to Mr. I thought you were talking about Mr.
Rosa.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Rhines can't make it, so our
Oh.
best bet is Mr. Rosa, who was hopefully gonna, but let's hold off. Let's
All
hold
right.
off and come back to it.
Okay.
That's fine. Pilot agreement articles. Do we wanna do that one and maybe take item 8H out of order, or how do we wanna do that?
Okay, so I can give you an update
Okay.
on,
And again, I just wanna make sure we get through everything on the agenda
Right.
tonight, so let's be mindful.
BW, BWC Greenbrook refers to the solar farms on Middle and Tremont Street. So, the marked up copy that you all got went to Attorney Matt Costa, and he took all the red stuff that I wrote and he put it all into an agreement in red. He resolved all the questions I had. There is reference in a couple of places to real estate, which I questioned every place I saw it. And what he said
Based on our
was,
prior experience.
yes, and what he said, the ones that he left in here specifically need to be in here, but this does not end up with the mess we had before with
Correct.
trying to obligate real estate
Mhm.
owners. So, this was sent by Mrs. Brady to her Jackie, who is the person representing those two. So, Mr. Attorney Costa's agreement has gone to them. They gotta get back to us. If they get back to us and agree with what's in here, because I'm comfortable with this. My opinion is, if they get back and say, oh, everything's okay, we can go to town meeting and make recommendations to approve those two. If they lag and drag, then we're gonna just put it off, because
Right.
I think this is as tight as we can get it.
Mhm.
I mean, Attorney Costa represented us at the hearing. He knows exactly what the problem was, and he won the case. So, we're waiting to hear from them. So I would say we will, leave it on the warrant, and I would suggest that we meet just before the town meeting, maybe 6:30.
Yep.
And if we have info, we will then vote to either recommend these tonight or just not have a motion on them because they're not ready, all right?
Are we okay with not, and I'm not giving my opinion, are we okay with not having anything on the actual specific warrant that people pick up that has an official,
Like
that's the
our-
only thing?
Like our recommendation?
Correct,
Yes.
yeah. We would just be saying it
We would say it
that
again.
night. Is
Yeah,
are we okay with
exactly.
that?
I wouldn't print a recommendation, but
I do think we should err on the side of
we think,
caution.
if somebody says, how come you're not voting on these? We'll just say, we don't have all the information you need, these will be coming up again. These are this close to being approved, with our recommendation to approve. So waiting for this should not hold up anything as far as the landowners go, or at the Stormwater Committee meeting today, when we had our site visit, there were a couple of things that the engineer had to do with Mr. Pilling and Mr. Aguirre, and he had the plans today. Everything is okay. What was requested, basically the corner of Tremont and Middle, where the land tilts.
Yeah.
There's some filling in and seeding and all that to prevent the water from. So anyhow, everything that was requested has been done, and the Stormwater Committee approved the project and will issue 2 permits, as we said. And what Attorney Costa said was, what he has written is one agreement, but it actually has to be two agreements, just as we said. So, as soon as we get the okay, and they agree, we're good to go.
So just, I don't wanna belabor this, but on the annual payments, was there any change?
Well, we put through the payments that we came up with.
Right.
That we had sort of
I would think
agreed
the
to.
front end loaded.
Yes,
I would think if there's a sticking point, it might be the payment
Yeah.
schedule.
okay,
But the other thing too is, when I told you it's 501,000 over 20 years.
yeah,
Mrs. Beauregard and I weren't sure if the way they put the dollars was relative to any of the production, megawatts or anything, if they had a formula, because I've never seen that listed before. They just list the year and the dollars, but whatever comes out of it, we're looking at, for example, the first year is $45,000. So each agreement would have a payment of $22,500. That's what we're looking for. So that would be the sticking point, if anything, because the rest of it I think is pretty cut and dried.
Okay.
and we'll get a copy of that before the special town meeting, once,
Yes,
Attorney Costa has
Yes.
approved.
yes.
And we get actually, when we get a response
Yeah, as a
from-
matter of fact, Mrs. Brady, did you get a copy of that through the email? All right, if you could print or email what Attorney Costa sent
An
to
email is fine.
my
Mrs.
two
Brady.
colleagues, so they can see all the red ink. See, I'm not the only one who uses red
That's
ink.
okay.
And, what you're looking at will be exactly what went to Jackie.
Okay,
Fabulous. Well, thank you. So we will hold on this, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Both 8B2 and 8H, okay?
Yes.
yes,
Okay. Um,
And
We're-
if I just could add something,
yes,
please.
absolutely. You can.
The other one that we have is what we call Phase 1 Elm Street, which is
Mhm.
DG Dayton Solar.
Mhm.
I went through that all last night, I marked it up, I gave it to Mrs. Brady, I heard from Travis, Stewart, and today, and said, where's the agreement? And I said, I finished it last night, I will try to get it to you today.
Mhm.
I gave it to Mrs. Brady tonight with a note on top, she's gonna scan everything and send it to, Travis,
Mhm.
that's the DG Dayton one, and ask him to review it. I think that one is, the payment schedule on that one, if he doesn't pass out, they're really gonna oppose it, because that was the one that started out low and went high.
Mhm.
We completely reversed that, and we also went to Mrs. Beauregard's recommendation was, the town should try to follow the same rule as far as front-loaded agreements, meaning the last few years would be $5,000. So we completely reversed it, and we came up with new numbers, so that one, actually totals, I think it's 700 and, give you the number. Do you have that one there on the last page? We got the thing that I wrote the note on. What's the total on the back, Mrs.? 773,557.
Yes.
Yeah. No, so anyhow, it's the same dollars, but we
Mhm.
changed the order, so.
Perfect. And you'll
and
give us
that's
updates on that?
That's, yes, that's a
As the
15,
negotiation.
that's a 15-year agreement, whereas
Mhm.
the other one is 20.
Okay.
I don't see that, well, it's not on the warrant, so
Nope.
once this one's finished, we may have
Great.
to have that special.
yeah.
Okay. And I think we may have something else that we,
Well, not
we
only
kind of
that,
alluded to
if
it
by
at the
any
department
chance we
head
haven't
meeting.
settled the other two, we'll have them,
Yeah.
hopefully
Oh,
all
yep.
will be
Yeah.
settled
Yep.
by then. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
so Greenbrook has met all the requirements as far as the town goes.
Great.
Just Mr. Aguirre would be issuing two building
Mhm.
permits, okay?
Okay. So next is the police cruiser revolving account. We were given more information at the, and I want us to come to some sort of a decision in the next 5 minutes on this. I know we have opinions on it. Everyone will get to speak. We got a little more information at the finance committee meeting last week. My opinion didn't change. So I'm gonna support it, and I will yield the floor.
I'm still concerned about the money simply because, we really buckled down during the last part of the last fiscal year, because we're all concerned about getting through this year. Well, so far, month by month, we're making it, knock on wood. There was real concern about, next year, we're in FY '21, we were concerned about FY '22. We still don't have an approved a state budget. We think we're getting even funding based on last year, we think. The other concern is that, if this town were not able to continue to provide cruisers and things of that nature to the police, I'd say maybe we need to start saving money and setting it aside. We've always been generous, even when things were the absolute worst financially, we managed to, the worst year we had, we managed to scrounge out and get one cruiser. I think this kind of money, because it's always gone into the general fund, and closes out to free cash, I really think for the time being, we should continue that. Now, this doesn't mean that if this does not pass, they can bring it up again, but I think we gotta get back on better footing financially. I don't, quite frankly, I feel, I'm cheap enough to say, I don't wanna divert any money to any place that it's not going right now. I just wanna hold on to as much as we can, at least through FY '22. Maintenance of cruises is covered. We have our own mechanic, we do it in-house, and if we can't do it, it goes to a dealer, and it's probably under warranty. So, so I haven't changed my opinion. I would vote against this if it were on the warrant, and we were voting
Well, we
tonight.
both didn't change our opinion. What good was that meeting last
So,
week? Just teasing. Sir?
So I'm gonna make it unanimous. I have not changed my opinion also, for all the same reasons that Mrs. Goulart eloquently explained. I think because of our financial situation, we gotta watch our dollars very carefully. Like Mrs. Goulart said, in the future, we may look at this a little differently, but right now, I don't think we can approve this. So I would oppose this article, and I'll make a motion now that that the Board of Selectmen not recommend that that Article 18 not be passed.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Under discussion, anything?
I have no further discussion, nope.
And I just ask if the vote is not unanimous, that if we're gonna put something on the warrant, that it just reflect that as we've done in previous, and it just says by majority vote, I think is how the saying goes. Okay, if there's no further public input, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Abstentions? The ayes have it, that motion carries. Okay, I'll give the update on this one. So, treasurer collector article, lots of fun going on here. So, I don't even know where to start. Okay, let me start at last meeting. So we had come up with 3 articles, okay?
We were correct.
We were correct, but we gotta explain it to the public. So, one was to allow the elected treasurer to become appointed, elected collector become appointed, and then the third article was to combine them. We received some preliminary analysis from town council per their review that one article, as was originally proposed, was the correct way to proceed. That was incorrect. And just to update my colleagues, we're on a bit of a time crunch if you just think about the timing of everything, in the sense of if we wait until the annual town meeting to do it, and then we have to go to the next ballot. Now we're at the ballot where the employee who currently holds those positions, they're no longer on that ballot. So we would have to have, if it were elected, a new person. That being said, I did ask you, Mrs. Brady, to reach out to Attorney Costa and to ask him the following. To ask him, per the last article on every warrant, to, bear with me 1 second, to act upon any other business that lawfully may be introduced at said meeting. And my specific question was, since these articles have been taken off and we're left with the one that's not gonna do the trick, do we have to wait for another meeting?
We have an update.
Oh, perfect, great. I'd love it.
Because
You may have, I had a busy day, I apologize.
when I saw the warrant, and I wrote to Matt and says, hey, wait a minute, Those are two separate elected positions, they're not combined. His judgment was based on a combined position. They didn't know. He verified with Mary. He wrote back and said that he was wrong, and so I wrote back and said, but it's only one article. We need 3.
Yes.
So, according to, I guess talking to Attorney Gay, according to them, this one article can be broken up at town meeting by explaining that in effect, there are 3 parts to one article.
Okay.
And the 3 parts are, first, we must do appointed for each of the elected, and then vote to combine.
Okay.
I
Do
can
all
tell
3
you-
parts have to pass for that article to be?
Well, somebody could actually say, let's make the treasurer appointed and leave the
Oh my God,
collector elected.
nightmare.
In which case,
I give up.
Yeah.
in which case, we don't need the 3rd article.
Mhm.
But I can tell you this much, when I got that response, it rang the bell, because when the Berkeley-Dighton Bridge was under construction, the state called me and said, what's happening in Berkeley? I said, I don't know. They said, you gotta find out. We gotta know, and you gotta find out. So, I found out, and I told them all the things they had to do, which was what we did. At one point, they told me they didn't have to draw plans, they didn't have to do this and that. My only solution was to get in touch with Attorney David Gay, because he was also their counsel at the time, and say, David, they have to do this, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you've got to convince them, because they're not listening to me. So he convinced them, and then they put an article on their warrant that only covered a certain thing. And I said, there's the rest of it's missing. Attorney Gay said to me, this will be broken up into 3 steps. I will explain to them that this is a 3-part article that needs 3 votes. Because the other thing is, on those bridge projects, you had to provide certified town meeting votes from the clerk. So everything was pending on all these separate votes. So when I read that, it dawned on me, they have used this procedure before, and it should be okay. And David Gay is coming to the meeting, and he assured me he will speak to the moderator ahead of time to explain to him what's
Right.
gonna happen. Because where he's brand new, it would be very confusing. So I think we're good to go, and we can actually vote what recommendation we want, because we gotta keep in mind, I assume we're gonna vote to do this, we're actually voting on all 3, the recommendation on all 3.
Okay.
All right?
Let's do it.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, by the way, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that was what I was saying.
I will make a motion that the board vote to recommend the treasurer collector articles, because they're gonna be broken up into 3, even
Yep.
though there's 1, so I'm
No
gonna say
worries.
articles.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. And under discussion, I would just say, I'm glad that we ran it by town council. Probably lessons been learned in the sense that maybe I need to, as the chair, follow up and explain how things are working in terms of the positions that we're talking about.
And why we did
I
3.
didn't know where the disconnect came from in terms of what we submitted with our logic on the 3 articles and then the recommendation
Yeah.
that came back. But I have learned a lesson from it. I think I know what happened with that, and lesson learned. We'll get it right going forward. But thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and remember when we had a town administrator, and we had 1 article, and then when we kicked it around, and we said, hey, wait a minute, these are all separate, and that's why we did it that way. If town council had contacted, say, Mrs. Brady, and said, why do they have 3? She'd have said, because there were 2 elected positions. That was the confusing thing.
They didn't know that it was already. They had assumed it was already a combined thing
Exactly.
because the person
Yeah.
doing it had
Yep.
been there so
Yeah.
long. Okay.
But anyhow, lesson learned.
Absolutely lessons learned. It's tough being town administrator, Liz. Let me tell you, it is no walk in the park.
Hey, you're getting extra money, what are you complaining about?
Yeah, exactly. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, that motion carries. Mrs. Brady, I gotta be honest, I don't think we're gonna have Parks and Recreation representation. However, their position has not changed. Their position is they're not making a recommendation. They're just gonna allow the people to vote on it. And I actually am thinking that's probably what we should do as well.
Not have a recommendation? Is that what you're saying?
We can have a debate
I
on
think
it,
we ought
or
to have,
just,
I think we ought, and
Yeah.
we can, listen to our ADA coordinator in
Uh-huh.
a second, but I do think we ought to take a position on it. I do agree with, the Parks and Recreation that there should be a discussion. I don't think this is something, soon as this.
oh, well, that's
this
different.
is
So
mentioned.
we do want words to be said about this.
Yes.
Okay,
we
well,
want-
then I'm
yes.
changing my mind.
Right, but I'm not
Because we want
supporting.
it to pass in the future, that's all.
Yes, absolutely, and the ADA Commissioner, or the Commission on Disability will
Yep.
be speaking up on this as
Okay.
the position that they
Perfect.
took on this. So I'm okay with that, but I'm supporting the Commission on Disability as far as not, at this time, supporting this.
And
I-
the commission recommended that, right?
Commission,
Just for the public.
Right. And, you know, I feel bad for the people in North Dayton. They have been looking forward to getting the playground going again. I want to thank Mr. Rhines for all the work that he's done. He's done a tremendous amount of work, but unfortunately, for the Commission on Disability, we got this a little late, and we weren't, there was a webinar on this that the ADA coordinator and myself, this is all prior to even the commission forming or we having members, and we weren't invited to that webinar, so it would have been more helpful if we had heard from the company that was coming up with these items for the playground. So we're not prepared to recommend it, but we,
So.
Yep.
Basically, we're not gonna have a recommendation, but it's on the warrant, and we're free to speak at town meeting if we choose.
Yeah. I don't mind having a recommendation, but if the board feels that we shouldn't ourselves make a recommendation, I know I will be speaking against it.
One
Yes.
second, Mr. Gale.
Yeah, so,
I know,
I
you're
don't-
gonna get your chance.
So,
My only thing is, I get why you say that, and I totally respect it. I'm just hesitant for us to take a vote, and then we don't approve, and then it looks like, we're not supporting the park. Cause it's not that we're not supporting a new playground, we know it's needed. We've
Right.
all heard the complaints.
Right.
We live near there, so we
Right.
hear it from the residents. We know that it's taken this long to get one. We know that this opportunity isn't gonna come around many times. It's gonna be a one-shot type thing, and I think residents will understand, I truly believe they will understand that we wanna do it right, because we only get one chance to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
I'm not leaning to making a recommendation for the warrant simply because until the department head meeting this morning, I had no idea about what Mr. Gales had. I had no idea. He gave us a brief intro of what his committee's been involved with. And I listened to Mr. Rhines, and, so my feeling is leave it on the warrant and without a recommendation, and let the people decide what they wanna do. Even if they say not at this time and it doesn't pass, or somebody tables it, at least, we'll have an opportunity to say, if it's not voted tonight, it doesn't mean this is going away. We recognize it's a need, it's just that there are other, conditions and things that need to be looked at. We need more info, really, so that's where I'm coming from.
so I think Mr. Gale wanted to
Yeah,
speak.
sir,
on this.
you have the floor. And we're already at 7:20, so maybe 5 more
I can
minutes
do
on
this in
this?
5 or 6 minutes.
No worries, thank you.
So, very first thing I want to acknowledge is that I myself know that Mr. Rhines especially has put a lot of time into this over the past several years, a lot of thought into the process over the past several years, and he's done much of it, as a committee of one or a committee of two. And I respect all the time and the effort and the work he's put in. I will also say that the motion that Mr. Rhines made, because we had a joint meeting with Parks and Rec and the Commission on Disability last week, the motion that Mr. Rhines made on behalf of his committee of Parks and Rec was one that he and I had discussed already, which was a motion to table, not to vote up or down, but to table the request for the $92,000 for equipment until the two committees, which would be the Disability Commission and the Parks and Rec, formed a subcommittee, joint subcommittee, to work on and study the process and come up with final plans and recommendations. That was not seconded by Parks and Rec. So in that respect, it did not go further. The recommendation was then made by a member, the same recommendation to table the discussion was made by a member of the commission, and that carried unanimously. The reason that recommendation was there to table it until the annual meeting, as I somewhat discussed this morning at a department head meeting, was because although Mr. Rhymes has worked diligently on this, there was no presentation of pictures, diagrams, architects, companies involved in any of this, even to me, and I've been the coordinator of the town for persons on disability for approximately 2 years. So we had heard nothing about this, nor was nothing brought to my attention. Once our commission was formed on the 17th of September of this year, that was the day that I received pictures and the diagrams that I believe you have in front of you that show what a company that they wanted to contract with would offer and would do. And I know there's a question there about purchasing equipment and so forth as well. To address that part of it.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Gale?
Sure.
I see the dates on here that Town Hall was audited June 9th, 2020, and I do know that maybe the I can't remember in my mind, the ADA Commission probably maybe didn't have a quorum by then. But you also weren't part of that as the ADA coordinator, is what you're saying?
June 9th, 2020, we didn't have a commission until this September
Uh-huh.
at all.
But were you involved
No.
in this?
No, I was not
companies-
involved in any of
Okay,
this at all.
okay. I
Nor-
just wanted to,
No.
I didn't know, so
No,
I
I
just
did,
wanted
I
to
did
know.
ask many times through different channels.
Okay,
But was never brought into the process or told about,
Gotcha.
specifics.
uh-huh,
So partly because of that, but more now because we have a commission, this is an important project for the town. It represents people with all different types of disability, not just persons in wheelchair, but persons with autism, persons who are visually impaired, persons who have other different subsets of disability, not just children, but adults, people who have other formats of special needs as well. So to simply want to right now go out and purchase $92,000 worth of equipment to put in storage when we haven't even determined yet as a commission and as joint subcommittees if this is the right equipment. It may not be. It may be that this equipment is right for a chosen few of people with certain types of disability, but not the right for the vast majority, or doesn't cover everything inclusive.
may I add
We-
one thing to that, Mr. Gale?
Sure.
I believe, in my understanding, just more for my colleagues, my other concern with the equipment, in addition to everything that the ADA coordinator is stating, was that we actually also may not have a place to store the equipment. So
That I
that's
don't
a
even
whole
know.
nother,
That would be a whole nother part of it, and I don't
Correct.
know, because that hasn't even been
Mhm.
discussed yet. What I do know is that there are different types of equipment out there. We've had offers from the Mass Office of Disability to work on this project in the past 6 weeks since we started. We've had offers from UMass Boston through the Institute of Community Inclusion to work with us on this project. We've had offers from the Centers for Persons with Disabilities and the state Silks to work with us on this project. And what it also has done is, since this has come to life in different Facebook pages in the past 6 weeks, is it's brought out a lot of people in Dayton who have children or family members with disabilities or themselves have a disability of all different types. I want to remind people that the vast majority of disabilities are hidden disabilities. They're not obvious, like myself who's blind, or a person in a wheelchair, or a person who is deaf. The vast majority are others. So what I'm suggesting is we've never met with this architect. We don't know their background. We don't know their history. There are architects and design companies. There are lots of other grants. There are 3 members of our commission who have significant background in writing grants, who want to write additional grants to go with other monies that might be available for this project as well. We don't feel it's appropriate to be locked into this equipment, to this format. There's a question about the safety factor, there's the parking factor, there's the walkway factor. There are so many things to be considered. I think representing the wishes of the commission, it would be premature for the town to vote to approve this equipment at this point in time, because this, in the end, may not be the appropriate equipment. The site will be appropriate, but the site may have to constructively change the format and the shape of the site, not to mention how people are able to get to and from the site, knowing that it's behind a baseball field.
Mr. Gale,
So
would
I'm
it,
gonna stop there, but I think you get what I'm suggesting. So our motion that was approved and carried, as I said, was to recommend that this be tabled and that we come back at the June meeting with the full proposal.
can I ask you a question about the last point you just made?
Sure.
You have a question as well, Mr. Marvel?
Public input when you're ready.
Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely,
Both
sir.
this issue.
Oh, perfect, thank you. And you live in the area, so it's
Yes,
it's
I'm on
pertinent.
the CPC committee too. so-
Absolutely. Mr. Gale, regarding you said perhaps reconstruction of the current space would need to be done. That would depend on the equipment that gets purchased, and if this article doesn't pass for whatever reason, and you were recommending different in your mind, what would be more disabled accessible, correct? Would that change whether something needed to be reconstructed? The space, I mean.
It could, yes.
Okay.
Because we could be looking at different ramp levels, different ramp
Okay.
angles, different spatial distances between devices, different access to different devices,
Mhm.
on and off the playground, emergency access for vehicles, for extended potential parking for wheelchair vans and so forth. It may require more than the standard amount of parking and things like that because you could have more usage in the site. So there are a lot of things to be looked at that I think recognize that would be premature. Our hope is, as I said, I don't want to take away from anything that anyone has done on this. I think there's been a few folks, as I said, who have put their heart and soul into it. But I think we've had people now who say, tell me when the public meeting is, tell me how I can be involved. We've actually had 3 or 4 new members just because of this one issue who've come to the commission and say, I want to be involved.
Mhm.
So it is a hot and button issue in its own way that's
Mhm.
been very quiet for a long time and is now about to come to the surface, which is great because that's what's going to get it done. So I do think that the commission, both commissions, working together can come back with a recommendation at annual meeting, not just with a full plan and a full presentation, but a full approximate estimate of costs and a source of where all that money is going to come from. This is certainly going to be way beyond $92,000 project. It's going to potentially be a couple of $100,000,
Mhm.
and there'll be different sources that we can pull from other grant sources, both public and private partnerships. So
Do
our
you-
recommendation is to have it tabled, and we are open, even if it is tabled, we're certainly open to having this discussion at the special meeting.
Okay, and they can make that motion at town meeting.
And the outcome is to table it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a recommendation of
After the
Commissioner on
discussion.
Disability.
That
Yeah,
is,
but they-
our
clearly-
recommendation is for the outcome for it to be tabled.
Okay.
So that's what we're taking to the Board of Selectmen, so that you're aware
But
of
we
it.
want the taxpayers, the citizens to realize why we're asking that, so we want that discussion.
I'm
But we
fine
may,
with that.
we have a
That's
member of the commission
Yep.
that may want to speak on it, but also Mr. Mark.
Okay.
We're short
Um,
on time, just.
We have five more minutes on this. Mr.
Sure.
Marble?
Just to let you know, I'm on the CPC
Mhm.
for the past few years, and we've been working with that for about 3 years. And I know a lot of young people, young parents really was looking forward to that playground to be somewhat moving. So if we have to go back to square one, how much of a pushback we're gonna have? Because myself, I have 3 grandchildren that are really small. The next door neighbor just had a baby. There's a lot of people looking forward to that playground, and they've been waiting for a long time. And this is the first I heard of this tonight, so it's like, sounds like we're gonna push this back again. I mean, how much time do you recommend we need on this?
My answer to you as the chairperson of the commission, as the ADA coordinator, I can't speak for Parks and Rec. I can speak for us and tell you that our goal is to, and I hear what you're saying about people wanting this and people having grandchildren and so forth. I'm raising 2 grandchildren. My goal and the goal of the commission is to come back at annual meeting with a full, instead of just a couple of pages of pictures and diagrams, but a full plate of how it would be designed, how it would be represented, what it would accomplish, who it would serve, what the actual cost would be, where the money's coming from. So if it's approved at town meeting, our goal is to have a lot of this stuff in place to begin construction next summer. It's not, construction either way now wouldn't happen until the earliest would be mid to late spring, and this may not even be the right way to go. What you're talking about is important, but I also want to emphasize that this is for, as well, for children and adults who have other significant needs. And because of that, I think we need to be really careful about how it's put together and how it's designed. We're only going to get one shot at this. We can't put equipment up and then take it down because the state Mass Office of Disability or the Center for Independent Living or somebody comes in and says it's the wrong type of equipment. So we need their involvement and we need their support going
Yeah.
forward.
I respect your
Mr.
answer on that. So when we have a CPC meeting, we'll try to get things going, and maybe we can try to coordinate with your group and see if we can move this along.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Can I just ask that, since you're a CPC member? So is there anything, I know you need to have an application by November 30th, I think that was mentioned this morning. Is there a pending application now for the playground before the CPC, or Is this something we need to move on?
They were ready to take it up for vote. I really can't say because I don't have anything in front of me right now, but I think it really was getting close to bring that up to a vote. But that's off the record. I'm not really
Yes.
sure. I know we have another meeting coming up in another week or so, so we'll probably, bring that up then and then try to figure out where to go from there. I know they've been waiting for a long time, and I agree, we want to do it right. It just that, I went through some hurdles trying to get this thing up there and some, it was just difficult trying to get this playground at least going
Yeah.
forward.
I would simply ask if there is a meeting coming up for discussion of release of funds for any of this at all, that the commission, myself, be invited to participate and make a
Definitely.
presentation.
Okay, I'll bring it up to the chair and we'll go from there. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Selectman
Mr.
Goulart?
Chairman?
Just a
One
comment,
second.
just a comment.
Just one second,
Since
please.
the equipment that they looked at, and which totals this 92,000.
We have 2 more minutes on this and we
is-
have public input.
on a state bid list, and what we don't know for sure is whether or not it would meet ADA needs. Maybe it's going to because it is on a state bid list, and that's information that we will get, and maybe that will move the project along. We don't know that right now, so hopefully we get that information so the ADA commission knows that it does. That would save time, and we can actually save some money and move ahead, but that was just another thought.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens if it's on the state, it is on the state bid list, I know that.
Ms. Duszkowski, do you mind just introducing yourself and your address, please?
Or Jennifer Duszkowski, 214 County Street. I just wanted to point out and thank you, Mr. Gale, for speaking so eloquently about this. Our concerns are not just for the children accessing it, but we started this meeting off with a great declaration about Veterans Day. And we have to remember that a lot of our veterans are also disabled and would love to be able to access the park and playground with their children. So I think, I'm speaking for myself as a private citizen. I would rather see us work together and find some community partnerships to bring in some of this money and to cover the costs of really making something, one, peripheral accessible for all, than to rush into appropriating this money at this time without really that solid plan to stand on. So we really feel like in the next 6 months before the annual town meeting, we'd really be able to work together and build that coalition. I really think that would be something that we can enjoy for many, many years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to reiterate my position on this. I agree with everything that my ADA Commission colleagues have suggested, meaning ultimate results ideally would be a tabling of it. I do think that we should have a discussion on it at the town meeting. I mean, we meaning as a town. So I'm okay with it. I think we should not make a recommendation
I agree.
as the Board
Yeah.
of Selectmen,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Right. Okay.
And we don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Gale, thank you,
You're
as
welcome.
always, sir.
Thank you. And I believe, just separately, the other item is for tomorrow night?
Mhm.
Okay, and I've given you all packets of that information.
Thank you,
Yes.
sir. Yes, Selectman Goulart, this is, you were at the meeting, I'm sorry.
Yep.
This morning. Feels like ages ago
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Okay, discuss writing a letter of support for a grant for historical preservation plan. We received a letter dated November 3rd, 2020, for us regarding the, is it okay? We don't have much time, so I'm gonna just kind of summarize this if that's okay.
Sure, that's,
Yeah.
the board, I'm sure we've read it, so we know,
Yeah.
but the public, just give it.
Yeah. Essentially, what the Historical Commission is asking for us to do is because they are intending to apply for survey and planning funds regarding different historical places and districts, I guess, in town, they are asking for us to support them in that. So that is why this is on the agenda. That's literally the whole summary. The outcome of this, what it sounds like, is that as we develop things like an agricultural work plan, as we develop things like an open space and recreation plan, which will then become a part of our master plan, I assume that we are now going to be developing a historic preservation plan. We've all sat here as we get these requests from the Historic Commission that sometimes, unfortunately, we can't always fund to save different historical artifacts and structures in town. They are now going to, it sounds like, develop a plan of, I guess, sort of action, which I think is fantastic, because
Yes.
that's what we've said to them time and time again, which I think is really, really great. This is going to be a 50% matching reimbursement grant, which is pretty standard for this type of a grant that they're going for. And so it says, the letter of intent is due November 16th, so we do want to get back to them, pretty soon. And they're submitting an application of eligibility to the CPC as well, Mr. Marvel, to fund the estimated $25,000, which is the exact cost. And so with that,
So I'll make a
yeah,
motion. I'll
sure.
make a motion that the Board of Selectmen support the Dayton Historical Commission in their, the letter that they're sending, the letter of intent to the
Yep.
Massachusetts Historical Commission for a survey and planning grant.
Second?
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I think all I would say under this is I'm really happy to see that even though our town administrator is no longer with us, that the grant-seeking bug has spread to other committees in
Yes.
town, which I think is fabulous.
It
So
is.
your legacy precedes you and survived you, succeeded you.
Community Compact Cabinet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a
Hearing-
very proactive historical commission, so
I
I'm
love
very
it.
pleased
I
with
mean
what
that
they're doing. Yes.
seriously. I say it as I smile, but I'm smiling because it's really nice to see other entities really seeing the value in grant funds, even when it's matched, even a 50% match.
Yeah.
You're more likely to get a project funded in
Yeah.
this town when you have buy-in through a grant. So I think it's fantastic. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, that was aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. Mrs. Brady, we don't need to write them a formal letter, is this, do we actually? Do they submit that with? Okay, and if they end up getting back to us and say they need a letter?
I know in the past,
We
we've
can
had to
do
write letters saying
I
we
was
don't
thinking
support.
they would need one.
Yeah,
Yeah, they-
we've written
they
for
were
Like,
others.
it can be boilerplate, but I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah, they were
they
asking
would,
for a letter of support.
Yeah, so they'll put
because
it
they
in the
send
package.
it in with the application.
Yes, it
Yes.
goes in with the package.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. And maybe we can do a boilerplate, just so we might, our hope is we get more of these from other
Right,
communities,
yeah,
so
and
we
if you
could
look
just have
back,
a,
Mrs. Brady,
boilerplate.
you're gonna see we've done similar letters.
all right. And that, we took the vote?
Yes, we
Yes.
voted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next is adopting the order of taking for Pearl and School Street. You have the floor.
Mr.
Selectman
Chairman,
Goulart.
I move that we vote to approve the order of taking for the sidewalk project
Mhm.
under Complete Streets for Pearl and School Street.
I'll second that motion.
We have,
This work is all done. The order of taking was drafted by town council, so we're good to go.
is that the FDR, be brief, be sincere, be seated? I was waiting for more, I'm like.
Yeah.
Okay,
I did second that motion.
good work
Yep.
on this, by the way.
Yeah,
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. Selectman Goulart?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the order of taking for the sidewalk project under Complete Streets for Somerset Avenue and Main Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All, discussion?
Same comment, approved by town council. We're good to go.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. Selectman Goulart?
Under the Selectmen's report, I attended the Greater Attleboro Taunton Housing Consortium meeting. This is the first one we've had in over a year because we finally got a quorum. The policies and procedures for the whole program have been revised and approved. There is funding available for both first-time home buyers, and I believe that's now up to $25,000, which would include a down payment and costs for closing, it's up to 25,000. Not everyone's guaranteed that they're gonna get 25, but it used to only go to 10,000. So this is definitely worth applying for if you meet the criteria. And that, so that's the first-time home buyers program, and there is also ample funding for anyone who owns a rental unit, 4 units or less. And if anyone's thinking about doing this, you can call the Selectmen's office and leave a message for me, or you can contact the Gathic, that's what we call it, and they're located at the new City Hall in Taunton. So the money's there, and we need to spend it, because if we don't, it's gotta be returned to HUD. Nobody wants to do that.
Nope. Nope. Thank you, Selectman Goulart.
You're welcome.
We don't have any correspondence, or do we, Mrs. Brady? Okay, I like that.
The only thing that was there was a copy of a letter that the Stormwater Committee sent to the ZBA, basically to let the public know why we made recommendations that we did, which were pretty much based on experience and problems we've had to deal with. So it was just read into the record.
Okay. Thank you for submitting that.
You're welcome.
Under acknowledgements, I will be very brief. I was gonna wait on this, but I don't feel like it requires a vote. So, the town administrator used to do the big cheese. They are no longer here, but I do like it, and I think we should continue it. So, I gave a suggestion, this morning. Well, actually, I let it slip. I didn't mean to. But when the big cheese was brought up, I said, I think that I have heard many, so many, didn't matter your political affiliation, how well run, how organized, how orderly our election was run. Not just yesterday, but the tallying and storing of the mail-in ballots, the early vote that was conducted, both in the primary and in the general. And it speaks for itself. It was really well done. It was 80% turnout, so it was a really high turnout election. There were a lot of people, and it still went off without a hitch. So my humble recommendation is that we award the big cheese to our town clerk, Sue Medeiros.
And her staff.
Yep,
And her staff,
in recognition of
The department.
everybody, police, highway, everybody that
Highway,
was involved.
Fire
in
was
that.
there too yesterday.
The Board of Health was there
Yep.
on the Friday, the Monday before the election.
They were.
And then they were there also,
On
as I
the
mentioned earlier, on the election day. We had 4 volunteers working outside. You and I saw
New
them.
volunteers.
Yeah,
yeah.
handing out the
Packets,
masks
the little
and
packets,
pens and
yep.
and that kind of stuff to the voters.
Mhm.
It was, you and I happened to be there for a long time,
Mhm.
and it was very well organized. The lines were long, but it was moving, and, you know, only so many people were allowed to be in there, so that's why the lines were so long.
Mhm.
People were quiet, respectful,
Absolutely.
but the staff did a fantastic job. So I'm
I
in
heard
agreement
very
with you.
good, I heard very, very good. I didn't go down there, but I
Mhm.
heard very good feedback. People liked the fact that, when they approached, someone came up to them and said, "Where do you live?" to make
Mhm.
sure you're in the right line.
They had 2, it was great. I wasn't
was.
sure how they were gonna do it, but there were people out there, you know, as people went in the main line, they would be separated, precinct 1's here, precinct 2 is
Mhm.
here. It was a great job. So I know we got time problems, but thanks to the,
I don't think the
Okay.
public realizes how an election affects almost every department in the town, because from setting up the highway department, to the poll workers, to the highway, to the police department, and on and on and on it goes. Yes, it's great.
and they continued working today with the certification of the votes. I mean, so it didn't just end yesterday at 8:00 last night. It was the counting of the ballots and then the certification today, so congratulations, well deserved.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a
Yes.
motion that we award the Big Cheese Award for the month of November to Town Clerk Sue Medeiros and all of her staff, meaning every person, whether they were employees or just volunteers,
Mhm.
who helped carry off the election in such a orderly and professional manner.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. And we will get to do this next month. Yay, so fun. Under minutes,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting of October 7th, 2020, and October 21st, 2020.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say, excuse me, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries.
I'll make a motion to accept for review the minutes of the Board of Selectmen special meeting of October 28th, 2020.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. Approval of the warrant, Selectman Goulart?
Mr. Chairman, I move that warrant 19A-21 in the amount of $102,874.68 payroll, and 19B-21 in the amount of $175,023.48 accounts payable be approved.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And they just need to be signed.
Sure, absolutely. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. Public input.
Gentlemen, I've got to leave.
No
I've got an
worries.
appointment.
No
So
worries.
you can let me know, or Mrs. Brady can let me know what happens at the executive session if I have to do anything, okay?
Thank you, Selectman
All
Goulart.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You drive safe.
Yes, be safe.
I got to pick up my co-pilot.
Any public input on Zoom? Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to ask Mrs. Brady if we receive. I don't
Yeah,
think
they
we
should have
did.
their mask.
Oh. You're like on the ball. I didn't even. Okay. Moving right along, Mrs. Brady, did we receive any public input via? I didn't get anything on Zoom. I gotta tell you that it's really helpful being the person when you're doing the hearing on Zoom, because when you hear the background noise, you just click the mute, like you see who it is, and then
Better
it,
you than me, I tell you.
well, it was when we had the town admin, it had to filter
Yes.
through them, so it
Yeah.
took a second. Oh, perfect. Okay. So with that, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss with the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. I do declare. Update on school committee, teachers union negotiations. An open session will not reconvene.
I so move.
I will step down and second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion carries. Roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Cable? Thank you so much.
Yeah.